Welcome back, everyone. Aaron Rift here, along with good old JM, Jeff Meacham himself. How you doing?
We're just giving the big intro for everyone? Okay.
You're thinking about your underrated matches here, and you're going to sell some of these.
Oh, yeah, I'm going to have to try it, because you buried one of them. On the last one, you just buried it.
Yeah, so stay tuned. Get your popcorn ready. This one's going to be good. So I'll go ahead and start off here with the most underrated matches in WrestleMania history. So, these are matches that I felt tend to get overlooked. Sometimes you have a match at WrestleMania that everybody remembers, and then there's a match that was also good but tends to get forgotten about. And sometimes the company tends to forget about a really memorable match. So, those are some of the things I took into consideration when coming up with this list here. Let's start off with WrestleMania 7, which was the Ultimate Warrior versus Randy Savage, which you actually put in one of your top WrestleMania matches. And I said if I was doing a top 10, it would be in my top 10. For all the reasons you mentioned, probably the Ultimate Warrior's best match ever in his career.
Absolutely.
And I love the storyline, and I think it gets overlooked because both guys were on bad terms with WWE for a long time, so WWE never really showcased that match because they were mad at Savage, they were mad at Warrior. I think now that Warrior went into the Hall of Fame and Savage is going in, I think that match will start to get more attention and get more recognition.
It was on Self-Destruction, was it not?
Yeah.
Okay.
But still, they don't really go out of their way to showcase that match because of the heat with both guys.
Yeah, I just got Randy's new DVD. I know it's not on that DVD at all. As a matter of fact, most of Randy's WWE stuff is stuff that hasn't been on DVD before, which is nice.
I mean, to me, it was one of the greatest matches of the early WrestleManias.
It was. Again, like I said before, it was one of my first main event style matches at WrestleMania that I ever saw live on pay-per-view as it happened, and it's just great story from start to finish. And it does get overlooked a lot.
Yeah. And next up on my list is from WrestleMania 8, Bret Hart versus Roddy Piper for the IC title. It was the third match on the card, so, people tend to forget about that. When people think of WrestleMania 8, they think of Sid and Hogan and Savage and Flair. But Piper and Bret Hart, I mean, they had a really good match for the IC title, and this was when Bret Hart was on his rise in WWE. He won back the IC title. And, later that year he would go on to win the WWE title. And, Roddy Piper putting over Bret Hart, that was a really cool thing for him to do.
Yeah, how often does Roddy Piper say on his DVDs, first time they ever shoulder to the back, and how many years he'd been wrestling?
How many clean jobs did Roddy Piper ever do in his career?
Yeah, heel or face.
So to put over Bret Hart like that, I mean, that just goes to show you how, highly regarded Bret Hart was.
Well, Roddy grew up in Canada, and was a fan of the Harts and respected Stu, respected the family, so it only seemed logical.
Yeah, so it was like a real legit passing of the torch.
It was.
So yeah, I really liked that match a lot. Moving on here from WrestleMania 13, everyone thinks of WrestleMania 13 as a one-match show, Bret Hart versus Steve Austin, and I even said it myself, like how that was a tremendous match, probably the greatest match of all time, at least in my opinion, and then the rest of the show sucked. But, I tend to forget about the street fight with LOD against the Nation of Domination. I thought that was actually a very entertaining match, and, it was just a crazy brawl, Chicago street fight, and you had Hawk literally bringing out the kitchen sink.
Yes.
So, I thought that was a really entertaining match, and I think that match gets overlooked a lot by people, because of the fact that that WrestleMania was considered to be one of the weaker WrestleManias, and everyone thinks of Austin and Hart. They forget about that match, but I think that was a very solid match. And next up here is the WrestleMania 20 main event. Now, a lot of people watching this are going to say, that's one of the greatest WrestleMania matches, and that's not really underrated, but because of the circumstances, it gets underrated. It gets lost in history because of WWE and because of the unfortunate circumstances with Chris Benoit. But that match, I mean, regardless of what happened, that was what it was. One of the greatest WrestleMania matches of all time. Probably the greatest triple threat match in the history of WWE, arguably.
I'm not going to get into a big debate about whether he should be reinstated or not, because let's be real, he shouldn't. But to damn a person for the last 3 days of his life and not recognize what a great career he had, I think is grossly unfair. And this match in particular, JR with his Epic calls, as always, the 18-year odyssey of Chris Benoit to the world title. Overlooking his WCW world title win completely because it was not even worth it. He was champion for a day. It didn't even count, really. He spent 18 years climbing that mountain, stone by stone, plateau by plateau, until he finally made the standard bearer, I don't care what anybody says, in the game, Triple H, tap out.
Yeah.
And he stood in Madison Square Garden with his best friend in the entire world, both as world champion. You can't ask for any better moment than that, and it does get overlooked because of what happened with him later in life, but it is a great moment.
Absolutely. And my number 5 here, Randy Orton versus The Undertaker from WrestleMania 21, which I was at in person. Maybe a little bit of a bias once again, but you know, this was the complete opposite to me from Undertaker and Triple H Hell in a Cell. This match was the first time I really felt The Undertaker's streak was in jeopardy, and this was one of the first matches where the streak was really, you know, made such a big deal.
Talked about.
And you know, when Cowboy Bob came out, interfered, and Orton had Undertaker, you know, for the pinfall, I thought for a split second the streak was over. I really believed it was over. And to me, this match gets overlooked, you know, because there's so many great Undertaker WrestleMania matches that came after this. You know, Batista and Batista and Undertaker. You know, the Shawn Michaels Undertaker matches, the Undertaker Triple H matches. You know, CM Punk Undertaker. There's a lot of great ones. This one tends to get overlooked, I think, and you know, people also think of Shawn Michaels and Kurt Angle at WrestleMania 21, and you know, I just think that this match gets, you know, lost in the shuffle a little bit. To me, it was one of the best Undertaker WrestleMania matches, you know, just at least in my opinion. So, you know, that's why I listed here for being underrated.
All right, but once again, we have a top 10 because I have 5 completely different matches.
Okay.
And 2 of them Undertaker, 2 of them have Triple H. One of them you buried a segment ago. A Triple H Y2J, I'll tell you right now, it's Triple H Jericho. You know, the storyline was hideous. I'm not going to argue with that one bit. The whole divorce and dog custody and car being destroyed and just Mr. McMahon being his vindictive, evil father-in-law self and whatever. And then to go back on it 7 years later and go, oh yeah, we all love each other. Like, what? Really, guys? Come on. But the match itself only gets overlooked, in my opinion, because of what it had to follow. It followed what was at one time considered the greatest WrestleMania match in history, which it's not, Hogan and Rock. And had it been the main event on any other show, at any other point in history, it would have stood tall and been a good match on its own. But the storyline sucked and it had a bad follow. That was the problem.
Yeah, so it could have just been the timing, you know, wasn't right for it. It should have gone on maybe before Hogan and Rock.
Well, you know, both Triple H and Vince have said that was the wrong move to make, looking back.
Yeah.
Austin Rock from 15.
Ooh.
And I'll tell you why. 17, the match of 17 gets pedestal.
Yeah,
rightfully so.
Attention.
Rightfully so. 19, Austin's last match, right up there with it.
Yep.
Rightfully so. Both of them had a great match that night in Seattle. We were supposed to be there, damn it. And it didn't work out, but it was a great match. 15 was more about Austin versus the corporation than it was about Austin versus Rock. And that's what makes it so underlooked, because the match itself is just, it's a good match. I like it a lot.
I agree. And as I said earlier, anytime those guys got in the ring, it was magic.
They had a match at a throwaway pay-per-view called DX, and it had a great Intercontinental title match, you know?
Yeah.
And they were great.
Yeah.
2 of the best ever. Triple H Undertaker WrestleMania 17. This is another match in the streak, like you said with Orton, that kind of gets overshadowed now because they fought each other 3 times in the streak now.
And here's the thing, you know, WWE, sorry to steal your line, by the way, here's the thing.
Here's the thing, I know. Hey, by the way, kayfabe candy ass, I agree. They're watching me.
Yeah.
They're watching me.
But, you know, what I was trying to say is, you know, WWE tends to ignore the American Badass era of The Undertaker. And I remember when they were building up the WrestleMania 27 match, they kind of ignored that first match. Mm-hmm. So, you know, I actually think that's a really good choice.
Yeah, the build-up to 27 was all about, well, you retired my best friend, so I'm going to get my revenge. Like, I already beat your ass once. Get the fuck out of here.
Right.
Undertaker versus Kane from 14.
Yeah.
20, whatever. But 14 was a battle of big guys where in an era where Kane, for those of us that knew who Kane really was trying to prove himself. Yeah. He had been a bogus dentist. He'd been a bogus Kevin Nash. And he was like, you know, he finally got a character that clicked with the audience, that worked, that was a legit badass character, and was going to prove himself on the grand stage against his brother, against his foe, and they went to town. I dare say it was better than Shawn Michaels and Stone Cold Steve Austin, because Shawn Michaels just gutted himself through that.
Yeah, I mean...
But Kane and Undertaker really had a great match, and they had a great moment to start the match, too, with Pete Rose, which is funny right now.
For big man versus big man, I mean, that match probably went about as well as you could ask, and the storyline build-up for that was just tremendous.
Yes.
5 months they spent building that up, and building up Kane as a complete monster.
Kane stood at the Hall of Fame last year when he was inducting Percy, Paul Bearer, and said that arguably the greatest story ever told has been the one of The Undertaker and his brother Kane. Find me the argument. I'm not kidding. Last one, like, this is no particular order for me. I'm just kind of going off here. The main event of the first WrestleMania.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Hogan and T against Piper and Orndorff. This match gets overlooked, except for the fact it's the main event of the very first show, which is awesome.
You know why it gets overlooked? Sorry to interrupt you, by the way. You know, you do it to me, though. I guess people always say you always interrupt me.
I know. I'm an asshole.
I'm going to get my payback on you real quick here.
That's right.
And drop the pen in the meantime.
That's right.
The thing about that match is I think it gets overlooked because so many fans today are younger and they think of the Attitude Era. You know, it's before the time for a lot of people watching this video. You know, I'm not trying to insult anybody, just saying that...
Well, no, we tend as a wrestling website to skew toward the current audience.
I mean, let's face it. Yeah, let's face it. This match was over 30 years ago.
Right.
So, you know,
30 years
because of that,
yeah,
I think it gets overlooked because it was so long ago. But yeah, that main event was extremely entertaining. You had Muhammad Ali out there. You had... Mr. T, you had Liberace, you know, you had all the glitz and glamour.
Not to give plugs to our competition here, but Talk is Jericho had Pat Patterson on, I guess, recently. I was reading about it on Instagram, and Pat went into detail about the story of why Ali was only the outside the ring referee, and why Billy Martin and Ali almost ruined that main event, almost ruined WrestleMania. So go, I'm gonna listen to it today when I get home, probably. But just that whole dynamic of WrestleMania just. It really should have been Hogan and Piper. Let's be honest. Just the two of them. They did MTV a month before. The War settled the score. So they had that match already in the books. So they wanted to do something to get involved with celebrities and have T be in the match with Hogan. It was his buddy from the A-Team and things like that. And that was fine. But the match itself, for the 4 that were involved, T held his own. I give T loads of credit. He was a rookie having to carry the main event of the biggest show of all time at the time. And he did it.
And that match put WrestleMania on the map. It deserves the credit.
It did. No other match on that show stands out except for maybe Wendy Richter and Leilani Kai. Yeah. And that's only because Cyndi Lauper was involved. Yeah. But that match, the main event of WrestleMania, is grossly overlooked in my humble opinion.
I agree.
So there's 10 right there.
All right. So stay tuned for more.